对，然后呢，那个时候要，你万一被他们打趴下了，那个时候虽然警察在那还要钱，我就嘴硬。你要看吗？就是当时给了你钱，他说他要给你了，然后我还稍微多打了2次。他后来又来学生什么都改了，多打了2次。
你毕业的时候我才认识的。
我要不然改一改，把它吃完了。
也不也就我们才几岁，我才84年。
Excuse-moi Alex, moi je suis désolée, mais j'aurais voulu aller voir un coup quand même. Bien sûr. Mais pourquoi tu les as déplacés?
Non mais en fait il y avait trop de trucs du coup. Ah voilà.
Ah oui, je l'ai là, juste son dernier. Ouais, parfait.
Je le mets là, sur le bureau.
Oui, voilà. C'est bon, il n'y a pas de souci. Je vais essayer de boire un coup. Ouais, mais de toute façon, là, comme tout le monde n'a pas encore commencé son café.
Ça va Thierry?
Ça va, oui, c'est super.
We have coffee. Coffee, sir.
Tu veux un café? Moi, je vais juste... Moi, j'ai des gros sèches. Pas de présidence de ça, c'est juste pour
les points.
Je suis au service.
Which one?
This is the last about XuechengSHAO.
Okay, and which one?
One is PDF, one is PowerPoint. It's up to you.
You can use the PowerPoint.
It's okay.
So.
I'd like to thank you again so much for all the beautiful gifts you bring back to Oh, we have to ask to Celine and maybe you can come with me? Yeah. Or maybe we can do it after lunch, the afternoon? Yes, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
I think it's possible.
It's my life.
Michel, this is my husband, Thierry.
My name is Chen.
I mistake all the time. Your first name is XuechengSHAO. XuechengSHAO, sorry. So it's your first name. Yes, and Chinese. Oh, Chinese, I haven't seen my husband, Thierry. And he's the conceptor of the archaeological database. His design, he maintained the site and...
More than 10 years.
Thank you so much. Well, I already put your PPT, I found it yesterday, you sent it to me by mail, so we are okay, and I guess I'm going to prepare a little bit.
One day, I really did a lot into China. Oh, yeah.
Our pleasure.
It's a pleasure. After you so many times, you started to check your schedule with your company.
me pose là.
Mais je vais quand même faire tout ce que je peux pour...
Okay, we are going to start. Professor Guillaume Ducœur asked me to tell you that he is very sorry about the late coffee break. So we are going to start now. So I'm great pleasure to introduce, I mean, she doesn't need any introduction, Alexandra, who took the initiative with Professor Guillaume Ducœur, Céline Rodard, and also Arnaud, and with the Guy to organize this conference. What is interesting in your work is you had the wonderful opportunity to work in Afghanistan, especially in Bamiyan with Professor Tarsi. So you are, in a way, the students par excellence of Professor Tarsi working in Afghanistan. And you have been collaborating with the Harvard project and many other projects. You have a wonderful knowledge about the Hadda material. So your talk will be about tracing Gandhāran artist modeler's hand, uncovering Hadda monastery's chronological sequence via model works examination. Floor is to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Boferacci, for this kind introduction. So we no longer require a presentation of the Buddhist monastery of Hadda, situated near the modern town of Jalalabad within the ancient region of Nagarjuna, which was occupied for an extended period from the 1st to the 9th century CE. The excavation condition in the 90s hindered Jolbartu's ability to study the stratigraphy of the monasteries, thus preventing him from proposing a precise dating. However, thanks to excavation conducted by Shaibai Mostamindi and more particularly by Professor Zemaria Lai-Tarzi, we now possess a better comprehensive understanding of the stratigraphy of Tapai Shotor and Tapato Pekalan. The history of Tapai Shotor is detailed by Tarzi in 9 phases, a pre-monastic period and 6 Buddhist phases of occupation, enlargement and embellishment marked by 2 hiatus. This clearer comprehension can provide additional support for attempting to refine the datation of the modelings found on other Hadda monasteries. When closely examining the crafted production from Hadda, I have frequently been impressed, much as you likely have, by the stylistic and aesthetic resemblances among certain figures. Similarities vary in degree, but some of them are so striking that it is hard to distinguish between 2 different works. Moreover, it turned out that such figures did not always originate from the same site. In this context, I embark on the task of attempting to establish series of figures sharing aesthetic resemblances. In this endeavor, I found great assistance in utilizing the Hadda Archaeo database, a project I initiated years ago, specifically dedicated to the study of the artistic decor of the Sangharamas. The database is designed and maintained by Mr. Thierry Béat, who is present with us today, and I extend my warmest gratitude to him for his unwavering support and dedication to this long-standing project. This examination serves several purposes: to ascertain whether it is feasible to trace the work of an artist or an artistic workshop, in order to propose correlation regarding the possible contemporaneity of the decorative production in certain areas of the monasteries. Subsequently, through comparison with the more accurately dated Tapai Shotor modelings, it aims to investigate the possibility of proposing a datation for certain works discovered in other Hadda monasteries. We must promptly highlight the numerous limits inherent in this form of comparative aesthetic and stylistic analysis. First and foremost, we acknowledge the subjective nature of such comparisons. Secondly, the modelings, as we know, may have been reused and moved from one place to another. Third issue, the interpretation can be influenced by the available documentation. For example, there are certain Buddha heads that I only seen through Bartu's photographs. However, during the excellent exhibition, Afghanistan, Shadows and Legends, organized by Nicolas Engel 2 years ago in Guimet Museum, I was quite surprised to discover that they appeared much less chubby than depicted in the old photographs. Fourthly, a large part of the dimension remain unknown or have been lost. And fifthly, the employment of masks and molds can undoubtedly confuse our understanding. All those complications, unknown and misleading impression can certainly screw our perception of the artwork, influence the description we provide, consequently affect the stylistic examination and blur the chronological approach. Nevertheless, by acknowledging this limitation, we can strive for more nuanced examination while remaining open to interpretation. Of course, I have not investigated these series, if they really are, in the sequence in which I am about to present them to you. However, I have arranged them based on outcomes of their examination for the sake of demonstration. Unless specified otherwise, and in most cases, the reference work are housed at the Guillemette Museum. So let us return to our concern. Can one trace the hand of a Gandhāran artist? This question is nothing new. Professors Domenico Faccenna, Nafili Genzi, Luca Maria Olivieri, and Farouk Swati, among others, have already investigated the subject. On this concern, the history of art provides us with invaluable insights through the ages and across cultures. We can assume that in Ada, as elsewhere, certain masters have achieved recognition for their artistic prowess from their contemporaries and subsequent generations. As a result, their artistic school may have become influential centers of creativities and learning, attracting apprentices. We know this dynamic process of emulation and inspiration has played a crucial role in the evolution of artistic movements and styles, shaping the cultural landscape and contributing to the diversity and richness of artistic expression across different periods and regions in Greater Gandhāra. To illustrate our point, let us start with an examination that led me to an unexpected revelation. From Barthu's publication, you know the photograph of this skeletal figure, photographed again years later, or so I assume, by Thierry Olivier for the Guillemette Museum archives. The hydrocephalic skull, the orbits of different diameters, the asymmetrical opening of the nostrils, the massive teeth separated by white diastemas, pointed on the upper jaw, two teeth appearing to be welded together at the back, the attention paid to the representation of the trachea, the clavicle, the ribs, and the misrepresentation of the sternum represented as vertebrae. All of these concordant iconographic clues suggest that these were two photographs of the same skeleton figure. However, this is not the case. A first detail caught my attention. In one photo, the orbit on the left was the smallest, and in the other, it was the one on the right. The same applied to the welded teeth, and my first thought was that during the development of the photo, the direction of the photo had perhaps been reversed. Alert, my eyes scanning the image for any other difference, I also noticed that a piece of the remaining wall was missing, and I wondered about the possibility of a break between Barthu's time and our own, and then I realized that it was implausible. If the photo was reversed, the section of wall was no longer on the right side. So let us invert Barthu's photograph to find out for ourselves. The first thing that stands out is that the section of the wall is no longer on the right side. Secondly, the inclination of the head does not coincide either, nor does the lump visible on the skull. The narrowest nostril, which should be on the right, is on the left. You see my point. We are not talking about two photographs of the same skeleton, but about two distinct skeletal figures. This is a perfect introduction to our reasoning because it is difficult to distinguish between two works. It seems highly likely that they were made by the same hand, the same artist, and are therefore contemporary. In the case of these two modelings, they can clearly be attributed to the same artisan that we could say assigned to skeletal representation. Let us consider a similar connection. Once again, there is a striking resemblance between these two characters, a wind genius and a fire demon. Their hair and beard treated in twisted and colored strands, bristling in the shape of flames. Their expression is marked by pathos, borrowed from Western influence, deep gaze, half-open mouth. We know these two artworks were part of the decoration of two adjacent stupa, 67 and 68, in the stupa's courtyard of Tapakalam. Without overstepping, it is reasonable to presume that they were made by the same hand and subsequently are contemporaneous. Let us now shift our focus on this series of mustached characters, starting with this warrior sporting a shaved chin. The deep gaze and the dark expression give this fighter a tormented look, a severe expression that we found on the next character, a bearded and mustached Brahman, made very expressive by eyes deeply sunken in their sockets and serious eyebrows. We clearly recognize the same artistic end. Now I suggest we compare these two Brahman to the following one, who exhibit the same dark gaze. The hair is long and falls over ears with enlarged lobes. One of the locks is twisted and form a small bun. The face is young, thin, with high cheekbones. The eyes are deep, the mouth half open. Inspired by this type 2, almost identical figure, except for the rendering of the bird, the hair is long and straight, arranged from a medial parting. The facial expression bears the aforementioned characteristic. All these works come from the vicinity of Stupa 67 and 68 and seem to be attributable to the same end, or at least the same workshop, subsequently to the same period. I draw your attention on this Brahman again, which is joined by a similar figure, although less refined. I was questioning the notion of legacy of the subsequent influence of a school of art, and I pondered if this head, especially with its more rudimentary rendering of the face and hair, constitute a first draft, the work of an apprentice, or if it might be connected to a later attempt to emulate this mustache touch. Indeed, we say it is reasonable to assume that some styles became recognized and renowned, then creating emulators before being imitated and copied. Let us go further. It is even conceivable that such imitation work was part of the apprentice's training, with the master testing the rigor of his pupils before allowing them to express their own creativity. Do we dare to imagine a master who, by way of reward, would have allowed one of his particularly brilliant apprentices to participate in the creation of a model scene? In the absence of written texts and sources, the idea may seem hazardous. Nonetheless, this type of less accomplished work, inspired by a more elaborate type, raises a legitimate question. A first draft, the work of an apprentice or a later replica, what are the implications for the relative dating of these works? In the two first scenarios, it would imply almost the same period than the head of the original workshop. In the third case, it would suggest a more recent date. Therefore, we should proceed with caution, but in any case, a question mark looms over this matter. The particular rendering of the depth of the gaze also raises the question of whether the following Brahman belongs to this group, despite its Central Asian inspiration appearance. Thus far, our examinations has prompted us to inquire about the potential contemporaneity of decoration found in various monuments in the same area of a monastery, exemplified by the Stupa's courtyard of Tapakalan in this instance. Let us continue our examination and consider these two Buddha heads, one photographed in its right profile, the other in its left. As before with the skeletal representation, at first glance, it might appear to be the same artwork, photographed from two different angles. Obviously, your eye of the specialist art historian will immediately spot a number of differences, particularly in the way the hair is rendered. Nevertheless, the design of the forehead, the roundness of the face, the almond shape of the half-closed eyes, the straight nose, the mouth with its lips, and the proportion of the different parts of the face exhibit an undoubtedly kinship. These iconographic features lead me to believe that these two artworks were produced by the same artist and are contemporaneous. It should be noted that they come from the site of Tapakalan, one ornated Stupa 92, located in the Stupa's courtyard. The other was part of the decor of niche 142, located in the perimeter of the courtyard of Stupa 140. The construction sequence of Tapakalan is not well known. The monastery consists of 4 adjoining parts. The oldest settlement is probably the one located further north. But the relative chronology of the other areas is not known. If these two artworks were produced by the same hand, this would imply that at least some of the decoration on Stupa 92 and niches 142 is contemporary. Certainly, this single evidence alone is far from sufficient to ascertain that this applies to all the decoration in both areas. Only the gathering of concurrent evidence and clues such like this can confirm or refute the legitimacy of extending the question mark. And precisely, let us examine these three heads, one Buddha and two Bodhisattvas. These faces of Indian inspiration are round and childlike. The facial features are idealized, half-closed eyes, slight smile, full cheeks. Facial lines in some cases are slightly asymmetrical due to the nose, and the hair is charming and delicate. Some may argue that these characteristics are typical among all figures of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. However, where we examine, for instance, the Buddha head on the right, we notice a similar iconography, yet the facial style is unmistakably distinct. What prompts me to doubt the likelihood of a single creative hand is not so much the shared iconographic traits among the three heads, but rather the stylistic resemblances they bear, added to the kinship of the proportion of the different parts of the face, such as eye spacing, distance from eye to the bridge of the nose, from the nose to the mouth, and so forth. Again, the stylistic similarities raise the question of the contemporaneity. If the three heads were made by the same modeler or group of artists, we always remain in the conditional tense. What does the location tell us? They all originate from Tapakalan. However, it is worth noting that, again, one was found around benches A or B, adorning the perimeter of the stupa's courtyard, the central part of the monastery, while the other was discovered in the niches surrounding the courtyard in stupa 140, the southernmost structure. This is the second instance that established a link between these two perimeters, and I can assure you that it caught me off guard. Let us transition to a different rapprochement. The genius with flower is one of the most famous modeling among those found at Ada. He exudes a majestic appearance with the supple and symmetrical arrangement of his hair curls around the forehead, the perfect oval of his face, and the nervous modeling of his eyes and lips. This work of exceptional quality can be brought closer to this head depicting a Bodhisattva, young Brahman, or God Brahma himself. By eponymy, I call this group the Majestics. Now, let us shift our focus to the location. The flower genie was uncovered in niche 142, encircling the courtyard of Tapakalan Stupas 140. The Bodhisattva, on the other hand, was integrated in the ornamentation of bench B, embellishing the courtyard of Stupa 68. And once more, we observe this connection between the embellishment of the southernmost structure and the main one. These concordant clues need to be corroborated and confirmed, but it is reasonable to speculate that the pattern is beginning to emerge. With their sophisticated and majestic appearance, I liken these two Western inspiration faces to those of the famous Bodhisattva Maitreya with its luxuriant curly hair, and of Vajrapani Alexander decorating the niches around the Viro-1 of Tapa'eshotor. Likewise, I quickly return to the group of mustache characters, whose emotion I linken to the solemn expression of Vajrapani Heracles, and whose aesthetics can be compared to that of the face of the god Indra, both uncovered in the inside niche V2. The decoration on niches V1, 2, 3 is dated by Professor Tarzi to the 2nd century CE. Of course, we do not intend to claim that the decoration in the area of benches A, B, and niches 142 date from the 2nd century CE. However, some issues are raised by this comparative examination. Undoubtedly, the artistic workshop within niches V1 to 3 served as inspiration for some works in Tapakalan 68 and 140's areas. It is even legitimate to question whether certain artworks from Tapakalan and Tapa'eshotor were created simultaneously, and also whether it is possible for an artist to have perfected his skill in one monastery and created his masterpiece in another. It should be noted, however, that Professor Tarzi considered that clay production predates that of stucco and doubts that this creation could have been contemporary. But in any case, the 2nd century CE should be considered as a terminus postquem for the creation of these modelings. And should we dare to tread on such delicate ground, the question naturally extends to the other artworks we just examined coming from these locations. Although detailed examination and further cross-checking are necessary, the question deserves to be considered in greater depth. So let us note that the second part of this examination has underlined a potential contemporaneity or a link of terminus postquem of the decoration found in various monuments, not only in the same sector of a monastery, but within different areas of the same monastery. Let us proceed with our analysis by exploring another set of faces while applying the same considerations. First of all, we should examine more closely these two delicate faces, the first a genie, the second a bodhisattva, which both exude a gentle, dreamy expression of ethereal countenance characterized by rounded features. This soft, feminine, refined facial depiction is apparent on the bodhisattva, preserved at the Harvard Art Museum, whose fascinating technical study was presented to us by Angela yesterday. But also on this bodhisattva held at the Delhi Museum, or on these bodhisattvas. The following 3 figures can be linked to this group. Apart from the distinction in hairstyles and jewelry which differ, these bodhisattvas' heads share a feminine, delicate countenance, subtly tied on one side, evoking a romantic, almost timid expression. I would also like to include in this group these 4 bodhisattvas. Again, the very delicate face of feminine appearance exhibit a shy expression. If we dare to take the plunge, we would propose to see in this model production the touch of a workshop of artist modeler, a group rather than a hand, because they do not have that aspect of strict resemblance that we sometimes saw, and because for all that they have an indisputable stylistic kinship. I draw your attention on the last figure. Again, I pondered whether the last head, with its more simple rendering of the hair, constitute a first draft, the work of an apprentice, or a subsequent attempt to imitate the style pioneered by the XuechengSHAO expression group. What does the location tell us? The provenance of some of these works is unknown. Regarding the other figures, this bodhisattva originates from the great stupa 1 of Tapai Kafaria. The genie belongs to a stupa located within one of the chambers surrounding its enclosure. This bodhisattva comes from the main stupa 12 of Borgai, this Brahman from its secondary stupa 5. This other originated from Borgai 70. As for these, one was found on Beichi's AB, another on stupa 35 within the courtyard, and the last one on stupa 34 housed within a chamber adjacent to it. Drawing any conclusion at this stage would be premature. Nevertheless, these instances raise a question and underscore the need for further investigation around the contemporaneity of the creation of the decor in some areas of Tapai Kafaria, Borgai, and Tapakalan. I think time is running out. It's okay. So let us finally turn out to a series of modeled faces of Central Asian inspiration, characterized by a shared aesthetic rendering and kinship of proportion. The faces has irregular features. Seen in profile, the forehead is exaggeratedly rounded. The small half-closed eyes are almond-shaped. The nose is short and pointed. For similar reasons, I think this bodhisattva could be added to this group. Once more, the question arises, if these modeled visages were crafted by the same workshop, what does the location suggest? And you can imagine my intrigue when I notice that a connection appears to be forming between the production of some part of the decoration of Tapai Kafaria, Borgai, and Tapakalan, link just highlighted in the Sha expression theory. I momentarily delve back into purely stylistic consideration. The endeavor becomes more intricate and even precarious when we venture into cross-comparison. Nevertheless, we may explore where it may lead us and the questions it may bring to light. The connection between this bodhisattva and another unearthed at Borgai 56 is evident, even though the facial appearance exhibits a very different aesthetic. We note the stucco button representing the urna positioned just above the eyebrows, the address quite distinctive, a diadem crowned by a fan-shaped palmet, adorned with small pointed hornets emerging at ear level, the treatment of the hair fashioned into parallel waves framing the forehead. Furthermore, the proportion of the facial features, the rounded contours of the chins, and the manner in which the elongated earlobes protrudes from the hair exhibit remarkable similarities. In light of these markedly distinct facial appearances, how should we interpret the shared hairstyle inspiration between them? Was there a single artisan responsible for their creation, perhaps a workshop? Did one modeling serve as inspiration for the other? Are they contemporaneous or not? It is almost reminiscent of a subtle wink or an homage between two artists, maybe two comrades, playing and modeling a character in each other style. Admittedly, this suggestion may be a stretch, particularly in the absence of any archaeological evidence. It is merely an idea that I am putting forward, and I am open to any suggestion you may have. The concept is clear. Numerous other potential series have been identified, while the proposed ones awaiting completions. We asked whether it was possible to trace the hand of a Gandhāran artist modeler, identify a style, recognize the touch of a master, a workshop. Through this preliminary analysis, I am convinced that it is indeed possible. We also pondered the insight we could glean from this regarding the chronological order of construction and ornamentation of various sections in the monastery. We observed that we were able to bring to light the emergence of certain patterns and establish potential connections between the creation of a part of the decoration in different areas in the same monastery and even in different monasteries. Finally, through comparison with the modelings of Tapai Shoto, we have suggested a post-quem chronological link between certain series and the modelled artwork found in niches V2 and V3. This methodological approach has proven to be an enriching opportunity to deepen our understanding of art workshops and artist works, fostering research and exploration of related issues from diverse perspectives. The study has just begun. Numerous other series are presently being under examination, holding the potential for additional insights, and I will continue these comparative analysis and hope to include some of them in the publication. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. I can imagine the how much time you have dedicated to do this analysis, especially to looking at the chronological sequence, workshops, hands, the master, the pupil, and also the recognizing the hands. So it is a wonderful work that you have been doing. The most unfortunate thing is that you cannot go to Hadda. There's nothing remaining, or you want to do let's say carbon-14 analysis to get the carbons out of it. The sites are destructed. So you are working with the material, fortunately, which are in MichaelRAKOTOZONIA, and you were able to work also in Kabul Museum and the other museums. So exactly what I said about your presentation, Dr. Lopez. So these are huge challenges for art historians, archaeologists, technicians working in Afghanistan. So my congratulations. The floor is open for questions. Yes, please.
Yes, congratulations. Very fascinating. Just one question is that wouldn't it be interesting, for example, to also look to Greek sculpture and the model role, if there are any models? I have the impression we went from Greco-Buddhist art to zero Greco and all Buddhist. I am myself an artist, so when I see these sculptures, for example, the smiling angels of Reims are very I mean, they're not Buddhist, but
Absolutely. Many thanks for your question.
and also because in general, it's considered that the birth of modern sculpture has been the l'art roman and the Gothic before the Renaissance. Well, this is a completely new window on a new world, which somehow has probably impacted the West much more than we can suspect. Sorry for the question.
Thank you. Well, in fact, the origin of the influence of Greek pattern in Gandhāran archaeology and in Ada are investigating since a long time, and there is a lot of discussion and debates. Maybe it's maybe a secular discussion between between us. So there is a lot already published on the link between some classical Western artworks and Ada's modelings. That's why I didn't get in this in this way for this presentation. It wasn't really my point.
But for example, the hairstyles, it's very often this crown of hair, as so-called typical Greek. Well, it seems
Absolutely.
to be very common.
The crown leaf, yeah, that's true. And at the time of this discovery, for example, this head of Brahman, very particular, was compared. Sorry, I didn't find it. Yes, this one is at the time of its discovery was the first two was called by its discoverer Gallic barbarian. The third one, the Jesus of Ada. So this link has been really worked before me, and that's why I didn't get in that. But yes, you can. Alfred Fouché wrote about notably the genius with flower and make some comparison with, for example, Antinous Vertumnus from the Latran and this type of no.
Yes, thank you very much. Your task is very important, and there is no point to go back to Grosset, Aquin, or even Srigovsky or Malraux. This time is over. So you are studying something in a very subtle and a very tiny way, and this is something very important. And in comparison and relating to other communications, do you think that beside the expression, the feeling that we have, the comparison of the adjacent elements are just adjacent? I mean, you look at the face and less to the curves or to the jewelry. When some people look at the jewelry and the curves to make any sort of typology and classification. So this is the first side of my question, and the second side of the question is about what you said, the chronology, because the illusion of comparison is something that we have all the time when we look at anything. So I think that you are not falling into the illusion of comparison, but how can you manage these different elements? And if, for instance, some molds were used for the faces, and so on. So
Thank you very much, Professor Frankfurt, for your question. So that is indeed a difficulty to overcome, because to answer to your first question, it is true that I take more attention. I pay more attention to the rendering of the face than the curls and jewelries or clothes, for two reasons. The first, that was the attention paid to the hair and jewelry was already done, but I didn't left behind this idea, because we have to cross all of this.
Exactly.
So that's it. My first intention was to take care about the faces, and after, because it's a very huge part, the way the hair is rendered, and also jewelry. And this will help me also for. I go to the second question. It will help me also to have a better approach of what we can try to discover about the datation, because with only faces, it's of course too light. We have to cross all these iconographic, aesthetic clues in order to we hope, try to refine the proposition of datation. But it's complicated task.
Yeah, you have not chosen the easiest way, but I mean that you are succeeding in doing something that it is very uncommon in our epoch, and we must thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. I mean, as Professor Frankfurt said, we wish you all the courage you need to do this work, and it's knowing that it's extremely difficult, but it has to be done. So, as a successor in a way of Professor Zemar Tartsi, I hope you will undertake this task in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Professor Chai-Li Low is our final speaker for this morning session. She's a scholar in the field of Buddhist history and archaeology, currently serving as a postdoctoral fellow in the history of art and architecture in the Harvard University, affiliated with the same database that you are doing. So she's leading digital Gandhāran project and focusing on the research and the digital reconstruction of Gandhāran Buddhist sites. So you did your PhD in Beijing University, and under my good friend. So we are looking forward to a paper which is on narrative threads, the Chinese repertory of Buddha's life stories and its relationship to Gandhāran Buddhist panels. Floor is to you. Yeah.
First of all, before I begin, I would like to thank for all the efforts of all the organizing committees. Yeah, and I will try to keep my presentations in time. Yeah. Okay. The life story of the Buddha has captured the interest of many when dealing with the decipherment of the subject matters and the compositions of the Gandhāran narrative panels. We come to options ranging from Pali, Sanskrit, Tibetan, and Chinese. While the Nidana Katha's Buddha Charita, Lalita Vistara, Mahavastu, and some other later texts in the Southeast Asia, some have their parallels preserved in Sanskrit, Chinese, Tibetan, some only exist in Pali canons. Each text has their own significance in time. Meanwhile, the Chinese Buddhist canon alone preserves most versions of Buddhist biographical texts. There are about 12 texts. Admitting the importance of comparative studies between the available Buddha biographical scriptures, challenge posed by Gandhara Buddhist narrative panels question arises. As the Gandhāran Buddhist canon is no longer extant, which remaining text is the best fit for the Gandhāran narrative panels? Is it possible to employ a singular textual source for the interpretations of all narrative panels? In an attempt to answer the question, it's first necessary to delve deeply into. Do you see my pointer? No. Okay. To delve into the sorting and selecting relevant Buddhist scriptures and to compare these with the subject matters and compositions of the scriptures. Additionally, substantial statistical analysis regarding overall scriptures, subjects, and quantities will support my paper. Today, about 13 countries have collections of Gandhāran Buddhist scriptures, which can be explored through catalogs of Gandhāran scriptures published by major museums and collectors, as well as online exhibitions material from official museum website. Statistically, there are more than 1,100 Gandhāran panels among them. The life story, the life event of Gandhāran Siddhartha Gautama Buddha could be categorized by the prince, birth, life in the palace, renunciations and enlightenments, preaching stories, and matters concerning nirvana. These categories is custom designed for Gandhāran narrative panels according to the visual form of the Buddha. In the first state, Siddhartha Gautama appears in the form of an elephant and as a newborn infant. In the second state, he is depicted as a prince in birth, image, and status. The third state begins with his identity as an ascetic and mainly features images of him as a bodhisattva and Buddha, leading up to his enlightenment and the turning of the wheel of Dharma. The fourth stage covers the story of the Buddha's 45 years spent on enlightening sentient beings, depicted in either standing or sitting postures. After the first sermon is from the visits of Naga Ilapatra up until on the road to Kushinaga, the scene before the Buddha's parinirvana. The fifth stage is characterized primarily by images of the Buddha in a reclining position on his side, representing his final nirvana, and the cremations, the matters regarding relics, and lastly, the worship of the stupa. In total, there are 83 subject matters and about 100 depicting scenes. The following shows how I categorize them. Let's say the subject matter is the prince trial on Atlantic's context. The related scenes are archery, wrestling, tug of war, sword play, and horse racing. 5 of these scenes are grouped under one subject matter, which is Atlantic's context. The theme of the prince's weddings has 3 scenes, which are respectively represented in the carving, the wedding rituals, the bridal processions, and wedding games. In the theme of conversion of Kashyapa and his brothers, 4 scenes appears, from subduing the fire naga in the heart, and to put the naga in the bowl, taking the yama fruit from a very far place and lighting the fire when Kashyapa not wished to, and to extinguishing the fire when Kashyapa wished to ignite the fire. And in the theme of the return of Shakyamuni to the city from the existing images, there's no fixed compositions for the theme. The composition of each scripture varies. Approximately 7 related scenes can be recognized. I hope I can show you, but it first begins with Udayan's request for the Buddha's return to the homeland. It depicts the Buddha and his disciple in a forest setting. It's in the labels 1 and 2. Then Udayan with hands clapped together, pleading the Buddha to return to Kapilavastu. After the Buddha had consented, news of the Buddha returning to the city was sent back to the palace. that one. When the Buddha arrived, his first meeting with King Suddhodana, the latter was impressed by the miraculous act of Buddhas and paying respect to the Buddha. Then the welcoming scene showed servants washing the Buddha's feet, preparing food, and cleaning the palace. The scene continues with the Buddha meeting with Rahula, in number 4, and meeting with Yashodhara, number 5, the gathering of the Sakyamuni clans, which lead to a mass renunciations. There are some more which I will include in the later topics. And given the limitation of today's presentations, I will mainly focus on the part 1 to 3 and some portion in part 4. Okay. If we counted the scene, sequence, and the subject matters that can be correlated to biographical texts, taking the Sanskrit Lalita Vistara as example, the Buddha life story ends in the first sermon. Nidana Jataka continues the story after the first sermon and prolonged until the donations of Jetavana group. While the Mahavastu, though not in organized sequence, it covered until the return of Shakyamuni to Kapilavastu, and some story in part 4 about the conversions of Trikashapa and meeting with Rahula. Turning to the Chinese text, the various versions of the Chinese biographical text range from 2nd century to 10th centuries. We can see the gradual development of the Buddhist narrative. It is as early as 2nd century. Chinese Buddhist canon already has the biographical text. There are 5 relatively short texts, but still their coverage is different. The Xiu Xing Ben Qi Jing cover around 10 subject matters. In the Gandhāran panels, the Xiu Xing Ben Qi Jing, the Sutra of the Practice and Original Rise, is a prototype of Chinese Buddha biographical text, translated by Zhu Dali and Kang Menxiang, cover until the offering of Trapusa and Balika. Zhong Ben Qi Jing cover around 10 subject matters in the Gandhāran panels, mentioning the offering of Jetavana. Together with 太子日印本起经 and 过去现在因果经, they cover beyond the first sermons, mentioning the preaching story after the Buddha enlightenment. And 188, 太修188, 一出菩萨本起经 is comparatively late in this 5, yet it mentioned until the first sermon only. 普药经、佛本行集经、方广大庄严经根本说一切有部毗那耶杂破身事 and 众许摩诃帝经. Yeah, these 5 of it both end in the story of the Buddha returns to Kapilavastu and the related story. And the 2 that I'm not mentioning, they are the Chinese version of Buddha Charita. Taking account of all these biographical texts and make comparisons with the subject matters in the Gandhāran narrative panels. Out of 83 subject matters in Gandhāran narrative panels, 10 can be found in 186 Zhongpen Qi Jing, and about 15 were found in 188 Yichu Pusa Ben Qi Jing, and Mahavastu Nidana Jataka 普药经、众许摩诃帝经、太子日印本起经、过去现在因果经 and 修行本起经. We found about 30 to 40 matched subject matters. Then the Lalita Vistara, 破身事 and 方广大庄严经 are about 40 to 50. 佛本行集经 has 50 subject matters that could be matched with Gandhāran narrative panels. The conclusions can be made here is that the number we can find in Forbun Sing Jijing is far more than other texts. These highlighted subject matters are the 50 subject matters in narrative panels that are matched to the Forbun Sing Jijing. Besides the number, The scene in each subject matters could be matched better in XuechengSHAO. The circular scene, life scenes in Gandhāran panels, for example, the scene of returning to Kapilavastu, welcoming the prince when he reached the city, birthday celebrations, bouquet, and together with the marriage of the Siddhartha, this one, has not much explanation and description in most texts. Out of the available texts, only XuechengSHAO has the most details. And in the Atlantic's context for prince text, skills text, there are about total 5 scenes, and only XuechengSHAO is relatively complete. XuechengSHAO mention of archery, wrestling, swordplay, and horse racing. It has some subject matters that are not usually seen in other texts, like the narration of Buddha arranges grass under the Bodhi tree before the enlightenment. And in the story of conversion of 3 Kashyabas, it is not in Lalita-Vistara, no details in the Dana Jataka, and 3 out of 4 scenes in Mahavastu. It excludes the Jambu fruit narrations. Well, we found that almost all Chinese texts mention of this story and have all of these narrations except one, Xiu Xing Ben Qi Jing. Most of them have the complete narration that describe the scenes that were depicted in the Gandhara scriptures. Most importantly, the subject matter of the visit of Naga Ilapantra. Out of 13 texts, it's only XuechengSHAO that has the complete narration in this story. In the text, the Naga Ilapantra thought it's not proper to meet the Buddha in a transformed bodies, so the story is depicted on the left. And on the right, when the Buddha recognized the Naga, he conceals his original form and transforms into a Mandava body. Given the above analysis statistics, XuechengSHAO not only has the highest match with the Gandhara narrative panels in almost all of the subject matters for birth to the life of the preachings, the text narrates the scenes that could be seen in Gandhara narrative panels is also more complete than other texts. All in all, what makes XuechengSHAO specially suitable to use on Gandhara narrative panels, being not the earliest nor the latest text, has the most complete narration that matches with the Gandhara Buddhist narrative panels. Where does this text come from? XuechengSHAO is more commonly known as the Chinese version of Abhinisramana Sutra. The English translated version of Samuel Bell in 1875, named as the Romantic Legend of Shakya Buddha, being the largest corpus in the Buddhist biographical text, which is 60 fascicles. Bell translated versions, the English translated versions is a summarized version instead of a full translation. The translator, Janagupta, as recorded in the further biographies of eminent monks. Janagupta is a native of the Gandhara countries, residing in the capital city of Purushapura. He was ordained in his country in the Mahavana monastery. Coincidentally, there is one relic casket lit bearing the inscription of Mahavana, which denotes great forest. Janagupta, in his age of 27, he, together with his monastic friend and teacher, propagating the Dharma while wandering, they went through Kapisa, Bak, Traskugan, Khotan, Tuyuhun, and arrived at Shanzhou. Shanzhou is today's Qinghai area around around 535. Together with them are the Buddhist texts. They began translational work and Dharma preachings. However, in 574, Emperor Wu of Northern Zhou began the persecutions of Buddhism, which forced Janagupta and others to live and stay at Turkic territories. It was until Qi monks Bao Xian, about 10 monks, formed a group to travel to the western regions to collect scriptures. After 7 times of traveling, they had collected 260 Indian scriptures. And when they were in Turkic territories, the Qi Empire collapsed, which made them stranded. In the meantime, together with Janagupta, they checked and revised the old catalogs and found that it's different from the previous work, and they vowed to work on the scholarship together. While the new Empire Sui dynasty established, the Buddhism flourished. Bao Xian and his monastic mates arrived in the capitals. The emperor Wendi ordered to search for experts to do the translations. In 585, they pleaded with the emperor to invite Janagupta back to the capitals to help on the translations. And according to records of the three jewels through the ages, Forbensing was begun translated in 587 and finished in 592. Given the rich travel experience, Janagupta, mastering the resources of various places in the western region. Forbensing is undoubtedly has a special connection with northern Buddhism as well as Gandhāran. In the text and at the end of the last chapter of Forbensing, it mentioned, what should this scripture be called? The answer was, Mahasamgika named it Great Matter, Sarvastivadi named it the Great Magnificence, Kashyapya named the causes and condition of the Buddha's life, Dhammagupta named it the fundamental act of Sakyamuni Buddha, Forbensing. Mahisamsaka named it the fundamental of the Vinaya Pitaka, Pinizang Genpen. Due to the similarity of the name, it signifies Forbensing Jijing belongs to Dhammaguptaka set and gained consensus among the scholars. However, in the text, it also mentions the differences of each sectarian records of the same incidents in the form of annotations as well as citing part of the text. Broadly speaking, it has the literary value of the compilation of 5 texts from the above-mentioned sectarian. In Chinese, 集 refers to compilations. The foundational text or main reference for these compilations is the biographical text from the Dhammaguptaka traditions. Janagupta translated texts collected by Bao Xian and other monks during their expeditions in the western region. At the same time, he created a compilation that included all biographical texts. Consequently, this work has also become a classic that fits the narrative panels of Gandhara Buddhist carving. It encompasses the details and storyline of 5 sutras and was endorsed by Janagupta, a native of Gandhara. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Chai Lee, for this the courageous presentation. I was teaching the life story of the Buddha at Yale. It took me 1 year. You try to cover it within 20 minutes. It evokes many problems regarding, this is the reason why Professor Guillaume Ducker and I have decided to have a special conference in this place on the 11th and 12th of June to look at all the texts, Chinese translations, Sanskrit, Pali, vernacular languages, Tibetan translations. It's a very difficult task. I mean, I have been working very closely with Max Digg, who is translating the Abhinishkamana Sutra into English, both Chinese and Tibetan, and also the translation by Beale. I mean, he's not really a specialist of the language, and there are many mistakes in that. So it also evokes the whole question of oral tradition. Before coming to Gandhāran art, we have to start everything from Sanchi and Bharut. For Sanchi and Bharut, I mean, most of these texts don't. I mean, they don't coincide with the incidents. Especially, this would be my paper for the conference. So if you look at Sanchi iconography, especially the Buddha coming back to Kapilavastu, performing the miracle in Kapilavastu, and then in Sravasti, the dual miracle, it is more related to Pali tradition than any other Sanskrit version we know of. It doesn't mean that Pali text inspired Sanchi, because Pali text, all we are talking about Buddha Ghosha, cannot be dated before the 5th century. It can be earlier. So it means that there was an oral tradition, so that we need to take into consideration. And also, one of the biggest problems of the art historians so far was to take only the existing text without leaving any gap for the oral tradition, and also leaving aside the Brahmanical text, especially the Mahabharata and Puranic texts. Regarding, I'm sure Guillaume will talk about the wedding of Suddhodana with Yashodhara, and also the birth of Siddhartha, whether he came from the armpit like the Chinese, or whether he came from this side in the Chinese translations, whether he came like natural birth in the Pali text. So these are huge challenges we have to face. So I'm very happy that you gave the talk, and it will allow us to think more and more about the extremely complicated way of looking at the Buddha's life. And it's not one text who is going to answer. There are texts we don't know, especially the oral tradition. So the floor is open for discussion. Yes.
Thank you very much for that. It's very brave. Just a question. You were looking at matches in terms of episode represented, or also which is already a lot of work, but also in terms of how the episodes are represented, because there might be a match, but in the way of narrating the story might be different in the text and in the image. So I was wondering whether that had a place in your survey.
This presentation, the contents actually extracted from my dissertations. So it is included in my dissertations. Regarding the different scenes and the different depictions, and some comparisons to the Formen Sing Jijing. The example I can give is almost from what I can see from the Sing Jijing, it matched with the panels, just like one or two. For example, one of it, if the bath scenes of the Siddhartha, there's two depictions. One is two waters, and this is there's two composition in the Gandhara panels. And it fits one of it.
Any other questions? I just wanted to also insist, since we had this discussion yesterday, the other biggest question is, including myself, looking at the Sanskrit version of the Lalita Vistara as a part of the inspiration. So we realized in the same place, Guillaume, if you can remember, now, for example, the first meditation under the Jambu tree, which is not mentioned it's mentioned, but according to the Sanskrit tradition, Siddhartha doesn't see the ploughing scene. But if you take the translation of Dharmaraksha, it is there. So my only thing is, this is why I raised my glass of wine yesterday to Professor Kim, who is here. Without the translation of Lalita Vistara by Dharmaraksha, we cannot do anything on Gandhāran art, because it is the closest. I mean, I can't develop it here because, I mean, it's not the case. So we need really to be completely open-minded and looking at all the text, and also especially leave gap for the oral tradition. Really, I mean, recently I spoke about this Twin Miracle, and the closest thing is the Gandhari manuscript, which was published by Harry Falk. And of course, it's not, I mean, relevant to the many other texts. It doesn't mean Gandhari texts are the ancient ones. Before the Gandhari, there was oral tradition, especially looking at Sanchi and Bharut. So it's wonderful. Thank you so much for your paper. And so we are looking forward to the conference on the 11th and 12th with the presence of Oscar von Neuberg, Peter Skilling, Max Dieg, and also Jesse Pons and Roy and Monica Zinn, and also Laura Giuliano, and all the people working on texts and also working on iconography. Not that we are going to solve any problem, but we are going to expose how difficult it is to write the life story of the Buddha, depending on the text that we have. One has to be extremely careful. Thank you very much, and thank you so much for your cooperation and wonderful papers.
Oui, oui, je ferme. Oui. Donc, c'est là, c'est ça le commencement. On n'a pas d'autre. Donc, il faut voir ce qui s'est passé. Bien sûr, la vie de Bouddha, donc bien sûr, c'est avec les bien sûr. Mais c'est pour ça, tu vois, que moi, c'est bien. Oui, c'est bien. Mais c'est pas mon choix. C'est pas mon choix. Parce que moi, au niveau photographie, ce qui m'intéresse le plus, c'est voilà. Deuxième premier, c'est faire les frères. C'est là. Avec des témoignages. C'est là comment. Quand en Sanchi, tu as le grand défaut, tout ça. C'était déjà là. Oui, voilà, c'est là. Le double miracle, la naissance, c'est toujours comme c'est miracle. Tout est là. Alors après, vous cherchez le fait que 190 machin. Ah oui, mais forcément, parce qu'il émane probablement peut-être un texte en écrit. Et puis, même on ne sait pas, hein, ça peut être aussi le fait, ça peut être aussi un texte chinois qui a été composé par des pèlerins chinois qui, eux, ensuite ont visité tout le Gandhāran, ont noté, qu'on vit tout ça, parce que les Chinois ils notaient, hein, et puis après ils ont fait un grand truc. Et ce qui est très
tout ce qu'on fait, c'est très bien, au moins on pose une question intelligente sans donner des réponses.
Voilà. Et ce qui est très intéressant, c'est ce qu'elle a montré effectivement le texte chinois où il s'interrogeait sur. Alors, les Mahashikai disent que c'est un tel, ils disent que c'est le Mahavas, tout ça. Mais bien sûr, parce que pourquoi? Parce qu'ils ne s'interrogeaient pas comme ça. Eux, ils disaient, c'est une vie du Bouddha. Donc, pour les intels, ça s'appelle comme ça, pour les intels, ça s'appelle comme ça, pour les intels. Parce qu'en fait, ils parlent tous de la vie du Bouddha. Mais tu vois, c'est pas. Parce que certains ont dit, ah bah eux, ils disent que il s'appelle comme ça, il s'appelle comme ça. Non, mais les auteurs, ils disent, oui, bah, c'est la vie du Bouddha,
Alors dans telle école, ils disent que ça s'appelle comme ça parce que c'est leur version.
Ouais.
Dans telle autre, ils disent que ça s'appelle comme ça parce que c'est leur version,
Ouais.
etc. Mais il n'y a pas de conflit entre ça. C'est-à-dire que chacun a sa liberté de raconter les histoires sur son fondateur.
Ouais. Et puis, la façon le Bouddha est né d'ici,
Oui,
ici, là.
mais bien sûr.
Donc,
Mais il y a tellement de variantes.
Il y a tellement de variantes. Et puis, il y a aussi entre les côtes. Donc, c'est ouvert.
Tu connais ces livres-là? Tu peux en prendre un.
Ah, si, j'en ai.
Tu connais?
Oui, oh là là. Tu connais? Là, j'ai tout ça. Oh, voilà.
Ça, c'est très connu.
C'est normal que tu
c'est normal, voilà.
C'est normal que tu Non, c'est bien ce qu'on va faire, Guillaume.
Oui. Mais tu vois, quand on a commencé à parler, je me suis dit, quand on a commencé à parler, je me suis dit, ça aurait été un mauvais exemple à présenter à notre, d'un point de vue méthodologique, à notre collègue.
C'est pour ça que j'ai profité, voilà, exactement. Oui.
Et je vais peut-être couper le truc là-bas. Peut-être, quand même.
On a 2 heures de pause, hein.
Ouais, mais je vais couper, ouais, parce que